Volume 1, Book 4, number 191. Narrated by Amr bin Yahya. My father said, I saw Amr bin Abi Hassan asking Abdullah bin Zayd about the ablution of the Prophet. Abdullah bin Zayd asked for an earthenware pot containing water and performed ablution in front of them. He poured water over his hands and washed them thrice. Then he put his right hand in the pot and rinsed his mouth and washed his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out thrice with 3 handfuls of water. Again he put his hand in the water and washed his face thrice. After that he put his hand in the pot and washed his forearms up to the elbows twice and then again put his hand in the water and passed wet hands over his head by bringing them to the front and then to the back, and once more he put his hand in the pot and washed his feet up to the ankles. Volume 1, Book 4, number 192. Narrated by Wahab, that he, the Prophet in narration 191 above, had passed his wet hands. Volume 1, Book 4, number 193. Narrated by Jabir. Allah's apostle came to visit me while I was sick and unconscious. He performed ablution and sprinkled the remaining water on me, and I became conscious and said, O Allah's apostle, to whom will my inheritance go, as I have neither ascendants nor descendants? Then the divine verses regarding Farid, inheritance, were revealed. Volume 1, Book 4, number 194. Narrated by Anas. It was the time for prayer, and those whose houses were near got up and went to their people to perform ablution, and there remained some people sitting. Then a painted stove pot, mikdab, containing water was brought to Allah's apostles. The pot was small, not broad enough for one to spread one's hand in. Yet all the people performed ablution. The sub-narrator said, we asked Anas, how many persons were you? Anas replied, we were 80 or more. It was one of the miracles of Allah's apostle. Volume 1, Book 4, number 195. Narrated by Abu Musa. Once the Prophet asked for a tumbler containing water. He washed his hands and face in it and also threw a mouthful of water in it. Volume 1, Book 4, number 196. Narrated by Abdullah bin Zayd. Once Allah's apostle came to us and we brought out water for him in a brass pot. He performed ablution thus: he washed his face thrice, and his forearms to the elbows twice, then passed his wet hands lightly over the head from front to rear and brought him to front again and washed his feet up to the ankles. Volume 1, Book 4, number 197. Narrated by Aisha. When the ailment of the Prophet became aggravated and his disease became severe, he asked his wives to permit him to be nursed, treated, in my house. So they gave him the permission. Then the Prophet came to my house with the support of 2 men, and his legs were dragging on the ground between Abbas and another man. Ubaydullah, the sub-narrator, said, I informed Abdullah bin Abbas of what Aisha said. Ibn Abbas said, do you know who was the other man? I replied in the negative. Ibn Abbas said, he was Ali bin Abi Talib. Aisha further said, when the Prophet came to my house and his sickness became aggravated, he ordered us to pour 7 skins full of water on him, so that he might give some advice to the people. So he was seated in a mikdab, brass tub, belonging to Hafsa, the wife of the Prophet. Then, all of us started pouring water on him from the water skins till he beckoned to us to stop and that we have done what he wanted us to do. After that he went out to the people. Volume 1, Book 4, number 198. Narrated by Amr bin Yahya. On the authority of his father, my uncle used to perform ablution extravagantly, and once he asked Abdullah bin Zayd to tell him how he had seen the Prophet performing ablution. He asked for an earthenware pot containing water, and poured water from it on his hands and washed them thrice, and then put his hand in the earthenware pot and rinsed his mouth and washed his nose by putting water in it and then blowing it out thrice with 1 handful of water. He again put his hand in the water and took a handful of water and washed his face thrice, then washed his hands up to the elbows twice, and took water with his hand, and passed it over his head from front to back and then from back to front, and then washed his feet, up to the ankles, and said, I saw the Prophet performing ablution in that way. Volume 1, Book 4, number 199. Narrated by Thabit, Anas said, the Prophet asked for water, and a tumbler with a broad base and no so deep, containing a small quantity of water, was brought to him, whereby he put his fingers in it. Anas further said, notice the water springing out from amongst his fingers. Anas added, estimated that the people who performed ablution with it numbered between 70 to 80. Volume 1, Book 4, number 200. Narrated by Anas, the Prophet used to take a bath with 1 seah up to 5 muds, 1 sa equals muds, of water, and used to perform ablution with 1 mud of water. Volume 1, Book 4, number 201. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas said, the Prophet passed wet hands over his cuffs. Abdullah bin Umar asked Umar about it. Umar replied in the affirmative and added, whenever Sa'd narrates a hadith from the Prophet, there is no need to ask anyone else about it. Volume 1, Book 4, number 202. Narrated by Al-Murrah bin Shubar, once Allah's apostle went out to answer the call of nature, and I followed him with a tumbler containing water, and when he finished, I poured water and he performed ablution and passed wet hands over his cuffs. Volume 1, Book 4, number 203. Narrated by Javar bin Amr bin Amir ad-Damri, my father said, I saw the Prophet passing wet hands over his cuffs. Volume 1, Book 4, number 204. Narrated by Javar bin Amr, my father said, I saw the Prophet passing wet hands over his turban and cuffs, leather socks. Volume 1, Book 4, number 205. Narrated by Urwa bin al-Mughira, my father said, once I was in the company of the Prophet on a journey and I dashed to take off his cuffs. He ordered me to leave them as he had put them after performing ablution. So he passed wet hands o'er them. Volume 1, Book 4, number 206. Narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas, Allah's apostle ate a piece of cooked mutton from the shoulder region and prayed without repeating ablution. Volume 1, Book 4, number 207. Narrated by Javar bin Amr bin Amir, my father said, I saw Allah's apostle taking a piece of cooked mutton from the shoulder region, and then he was called for prayer. He put his knife down and prayed without repeating ablution. Volume 1, Book 4, number 208. Narrated by Suwaid bin al-Numan, in the year of the conquest of Khaybar I went with Allah's apostle till we reached Saba, a place near Khaybar, where Allah's apostle offered the Asr prayer and asked for food. Nothing but salk was brought. He ordered it to be moistened with water. He and all of us ate it, and the Prophet got up for the evening prayer, Maghrib prayer, rinsed his mouth with water, and we did the same, and he then prayed without repeating the ablution. Volume 1, Book 4, number 209. Narrated by Maimuna, the Prophet ate a piece of mutton from the shoulder region and then prayed without repeating the ablution.